Okay, my camera isn't working, but we're just gonna record. So this video is some tips and tricks on how to best utilize the seed file, especially when it comes to annotating, dimensioning, fonts in general. So I know a problem we've been having. I personally have this problem. Some other students have asked me about this. Is that when you open the seed file, your title sheet looks like this, where like the biggest thing that catches my eye here is all this overlapping text. It's overlapping down here too, up here in the corner. It's just a mess. So we're pretty sure this problem is due to your machine doesn't have the right font installed, which, and to my knowledge, it's pretty easy to put in the right font. If you'll notice in AutoCAD, let me go there to our seed file. I click on it, it tells me, sorry, that's blocked, so that's a bit complicated. So here, it tells me the text style is Arial narrow. So it's quite possible you don't have that. The way to check if you don't have it is to type into the command bar style, style, and this guy pops up, and then next here next to Arial narrow, if you don't have it, there'll be like a little yellow dot, or I'm not really sure what the icon is, it's hard to tell. I don't have it because I fixed this problem on my machine. But if there's like a little yellow thing here that's kind of like an error, it's possible you don't have it. So the next step to see if you have it or not would be to go, so I have a Windows machine, I'm going to go to my settings, I go to personalization, I go to fonts. Luckily our font Arial, it's at the top of the alphabet, so I can click on it here, and then I see all the fonts here. It may or may not say narrow. This is what we're looking for. So what to do though is down here under metadata, click this drop down and see if the narrow text is there. If it's not there, then you don't have it. So what I did is I put this arial.ttf file into the collaboration folder, Bridge EDU, Bridge Program 201, textbooks, technical resources, and you can just download this. And then going back here, you can go up a level, and then when you like drop it into your folder, sorry, I did not pull this up. Oh my goodness, it's here, Arial narrow. So what you would do is just grab it and dump it here for it to install. So that'll fix a lot of your text issues not looking right. Please feel free to contact me on Basecamp if you still can't get it to work, but we're pretty sure that's what the case is. So then the other thing I wanted to go over is, I think previously in a video Jay talked about annotating in model space, which I wanted to put some clarification on that. So I mean, I'm an engineer in industry, and the industry standard, is to do annotations in the paper space. And so I've pre-set up a paper space, or I've pre-set up a bridge. But basically what I want to show you, the difference between putting a dimension in model space and a dimension in paper space, and then whichever way you prefer, there is an easy way to convert them to look correct. So I think one thing you can notice, let me see if I can pull it up, but I think like if you look at the bridge that your team submitted in 2020, it's quite possible your arrows, so let me just do a quick dimension. Your arrows like this are really small and you can't see them when they print, and so that's what we're trying to avoid. So that's where this comes in. So first, what I'm going to do is I'll set up this layout. I want to center it. So I just double clicked into my viewport. I'm going to go out because I want to zoom in here and see. And so I'm back into my viewport. I'm going to set it. So the default scale of these viewports is 1 to 8. This is going to be important later on because it's how you're going to convert your paper space dimensions. So we're just going to roll with that. I don't want to accidentally change anything in here, because if I ever want to make a change to the bridge, if I want to move an abutment, I always want to do that in the model space. You should never change what you currently see in Paperspace. So I'm going to lock it, and then I'm going to draw it. So this is what a dimension looks like. Put on my ortho. So here to this center line looks like that. I could read the text from here. I can see that there are some arrows, although that's not the layer I want to put it on. So I'm going to put it onto my dimension layer, and that's what it should look like. Now I want to show you, so here I'm in model space, the whole seed file's here. I do the same thing. I'm going to use the dimension tool. I'm going to click here, here. I can hardly see that. I don't know what the number is. I can't tell if I clicked on the right things because the arrows are so small. And so what we want to avoid is them looking like that in Paperspace. So when I come into Paperspace, this is what it looks like. Actually, I'll leave the layers as is for now so you can tell the difference. So the pink is the correct way. It's in the Paperspace, and the gray is done in the model space. I can't view it. If you want to check, we can look at the plot when it PDFs. So I don't have mine set up correctly yet, but still, I'm looking at a 22 by 17 inch piece of paper, and I still can't read that dimension. So Jay previously mentioned that you can go into the model, you can click on it, and you can click on the dimension, and you can change the text height. I would recommend a faster way of doing it is that we can go into layout. We can, so now I do want to play in my viewport, so I'm going to unlock it, right? So I'm going to click on here, and this is where that scale of the viewport comes back in. So now I have my dimension clicked. I have 1 to 8 here. So now I'm going to go over to my properties, and I'm going to tell it I want them to be annotative, and say yes. And then for some reason it goes to 1 to 8, but I want 8 to 1. So I'm going to add, so I'm going to go down here. I'm going to click on this guy. I click on it again, hit OK. Oh, I swear that worked last time. Okay. I don't know why it's not accepting this. Delete it. Don't know why. Sorry, it worked when I tested it out. So let me try. Oops, see, okay, my viewport wasn't locked and I accidentally started zooming in it, which messes a lot of things up. So you gotta make sure if you wanna go like look at something else to zoom out. So I think the error, so we gotta learn from it. What I did it in Paperspace and it doesn't like that for whatever reason. So here, what the heck? This worked when I tested it out. So if I go here, I'm going to make it not annotative anymore and see if I can just like reset. Okay, so click there. I want to make it annotative. Yes, that'd be great. And then, okay, yeah, so you have to do it in model space. I'm so sorry. We can clip that part of the video. But when you adjust the scaling, you have to do it in model space. So now it's going to tell it I want it to be 1 to 8 because that's what I put the other setting at. And didn't save. Let's try again. Click. I need to delete this one. Okay, there we go. It worked by deleting it. Now I can see the arrows. Now I can see the text. So I'm going to go into layout. Remember, the pink was the Paperspace. The gray was the model. So now that it's right, I'm going to put it in the right layer, the dimension layer. So I couldn't click on that Paperspace. Now I can delete it. So that is the way. And so the problem with just changing the text height is you can't see the arrows. So I highly recommend you do it that way. Same thing goes for leaders. So if I'm in the model space and I want to put my foundation elevation here, the text looks like, okay, it's legible. As soon as I click out, I can't read it. So I go back here. Now I'm in Paperspace. Make sure I'm not clicked in the viewport. Click on my leader again. And now I'm going to type in the same thing, foundation elevation. And now I can actually see it. But same deal, you can go in here, you can click on it, go to annotative, yes, add 1 to 8, delete the other one for whatever reason. And now, so now it looks bigger in layout. Now they both look good. Awesome. So I did those one at a time, but like another fun trick you can do is, so I'll go back to model space. I'm not going to tell them it's annotative yet, but I'm going to throw in, some dimensions here. I want to know what my front of abutment to edge of bank is. I want to know how far my foundation is into ground. That. Cool. So now I have a couple dimensions. But pretend now I have everything's dimensioned. And instead of just clicking it and doing that process each time, I'm going to click on one. I'm going to right click. I'll click select similar. It selects the similar other things. And now they're all selected. And I can tell it to go to the dimension layer. I can tell it to go annotative. And then I can adjust the scale as we said. 1 to 8, delete the old one. Okay, now they're all bigger. Sweet. And then now they're here and they look good. So that's one way of doing it. It definitely works. But here I'm in paper space, so like I could just dimension it in paper space, which I mean, honestly, either way works. If you want to stick with, but here it's not annotative because it's in paper scale. So like I don't have to change that. I wanted to come in here and I wanted to change the layer. So that's one thing I wanted to cover. But then the other thing I wanted to talk about was so here, okay, so, oops. So this viewport, this typically the plan goes here, but I just want to show an example of another thing you can do with the scaling. So like this bridge, it's only, oh dear, undo. See, that happened because I didn't lock the viewport. It's very frustrating and it just comes with practice, and well, I don't practice that often at my current job. But so it's only a 24-meter bridge, and so it's pretty small. And there's like this blank space out here that it would be nice to use that instead. So I'm gonna click into this viewport. I'm just zooming in here. So before we had 1 to 8. Let's see, 1 to 10 makes it smaller. That's not what I wanted. 1 to 5. 1 to 5 makes it too big. See how the bridge doesn't quite fit in the viewport? So in order to get that to work, I'm going to go down here. I'm going to create a custom scale. I'm going to hit add. I'm going to call it 1 to 6. Oops, 1 to 6, because I want 1 paper unit to be equal to 6 drawing units. So I hit OK. I hit OK. It doesn't take, because it just thought and it only knows that I created it. So now I have to go in and tell it, hey, I created this new scale. Click there. Now it's zoomed out a little more. I can see both survey limits, but it's a little bit bigger than this guy. So now I'm going to exit my viewport, and now none of my dimensions are there, which is a great question. Where did they go? Regen. I'm going to regen all. That didn't bring them in. So now I'm going to try to make them this new one. 1 to 6. So the one I created, delete the old one. Okay, okay. So when it comes in here, now it's there. So so they didn't show up because the dimensions are smart. They're only going to show up in a viewport that's associated with the scale that is that it's attributed to. So I can go in and, because I mean, when you're doing an actual drawing, you won't have both of these elevation views. So I think when you start, you kind of have to make a plan of, am I going to first, so let me just do like a little bit, oh dear. When I'm going to do a little bit of a reset, right? So I'm going to delete all these dimensions and pretend I'm going to start from scratch and show you what decisions you need to make before you start annotating. Because like, yeah, you have this laid out, it might be nice to see the dimensions. Honestly, I do the DI command and it'll just tell me the distance. And then, so it tells me here 24.1852. And then I kind of just like toy around with that. I don't personally put the dimensions in. Here, I just measure things. But so with the layout, why is that still there? Having a great time. Can't tell. Oh, this one was in paper space. That's why. Okay, so I'm going to delete it. So the first thing you need to figure out, so if you're going to do dimensioning in model space, and you can, so if you do the dimensioning in model space, you can change everything fairly quickly. So I mean, that definitely is an advantage of going in here, throwing in a bunch of dimensions. So I want to know here, I want to know here, but I can't see, so it's kind of a pain. And I want to know here. Cool. Okay, so I have those guys set up. Let's go back to my layout. So I can see them either way. If I wanted to, but then if I, so here it's one, this viewport's the 1 to 6 one, right? So let's go to the model space. Let's make all these dimensions. Click on some lines. Dimension, dimension. See, I could have just hit select all. Select similar, but there are only 3, so I kind of just did it that way. Instead, I'm going to edit it. I'm going to make it my 1 to 6. Okay, delete this one. Okay, so now they show up in this space and not this one. Here, so my viewport's locked. It's 1 to 8. Great. So I'm going to go in. I'm going to throw in the same dimensions because, oh, Kelsey said not to do it in model space. Let's try out her way. Instead, it'll be good practice for when I have a co-op or an internship. And then, come on, one more, to here, to here. Okay, so then this is paper space, but now I'm like, oh, well, I really wish this viewport was a little bit bigger. So I want to do the same thing. I'm going to unlock it. I'm going to change it to 1 to 6. I'm going to lock it. My dimensions didn't come with, which stinks. I'm going to have to redraw those, which it's only 3 of them. Well, here, it's a bad example because the model ones showed up now. Let's make it 1 to 5, right? Okay, so we can't see the whole bridge, the whole profile, but see how my dimensions like didn't come with me? And so, yeah, my viewport, they're kind of like, they don't know where to go. They used to have points that they were tied to, and now it's gone. So, I mean, your option is you could just sit here and you can re-snap everything, which, I mean, isn't ideal, but once you have some practice, because, I mean, knowing when I had to do a bridge, when I did my bridges, like, I did so many iterations, you just eventually figure out which way works best for you. But I would recommend that when you move on to this sheet, pick a scale and right away that works the best, so you don't run into this issue. Because I know I was fixing a site yesterday for a staff build, and I ended up scaling it up, and then I had to readdress everything. So yeah, so those are just some fun tips we have. We'll see if there's anything else that comes up. Looking at my notes, another pointer for the text install, I'm not entirely sure if it'll work automatically. You'll probably have to close AutoCAD and reopen it. And if that doesn't work, you might need to restart the machine. If you're on a school computer, you should be able to have access to install fonts. I don't know, I'm no longer a student, but my personal computer did not have the font, so maybe school ones will. And if we still can't get it to work, post something in Basecamp and we'll figure it out. Thanks.